Alright guys, what's up? So I apologize it's taken so long for me to get to this video, but I finally got some spare time. Well, not really, I'm kind of making time, but right before I'm about to throw my buggy back together for round 2 of SOS, practice starts tomorrow. It's about 11 o'clock Thursday night. So anyway, I'm just going to do a video on everything I do before I put the car back together after cleaning. And just what all goes into that. I apologize, I don't have a camera person tonight, so it's just me, but we're gonna get it done for you guys, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so like one of the first things I do is I kind of just lay everything out. I make sure that I have everything where it goes laid out in order, and it kind of just how it's going to go back in the car. It just makes things go a lot smoother. Everything's easy. Make sure none of the screws are stripped out. Make sure I have all my tools laid out, and I just make sure I have everything ready to go. So I'm just kind of do an overview of that right now, and then we'll go back putting the car together. All right, so over here I have everything laid out as it's going to go in the car, basically. I just haven't bought one of these yet. I've been lazy, but it made me a little foam piece that just is labeled what all the screws are for. Gone through all the screws as I took them out, made sure that none of the heads were stripped out, so everything's going to go smoothly. Just always inspect your screws, make sure they're stripped out, so that way you don't have any problem with putting them back in and stripping them, tightening them, or the next time you take them out. It's just a good idea to keep that in check and maintenance. Also, another thing that I do before I put the car back together is I'll go through and check all my bearings. I'll just make sure they look fine. I'll make sure there's no grit to them or just any noise in general. And this one seems to be fine. I just replaced these, I think last time I built the car. So I make sure all my bearings are good. I go through those. Also a good idea if you're running a nitro car to look at your brake shoes. Make sure they're not cracked or anything, and make sure they're all in good shape. Check the brake rotor, make sure all that's good. Then another thing is on the car again, check all of these bearings. I'm using a Mugen MBX8, so it could be different for each car. The Team Associated is very similar to this. Some other cars be a little different, but just make sure everything also just turns freely. Like as you can see, this just barely flicking it and it just goes right back and forth. So all these bearings should be fine. You can take them apart and inspect them if you want to, but the way I do it with the WD-40, you really don't have to. Everything should be fine. Then there's bearings in here. I just check every bearing, just to make sure everything's good, there's no noises, because the last thing you want to do is just have a problem at the track. This is the time to check over everything and eliminate any problems so you can make those longer mains, and just so you have peace of mind and confidence going into each race event. Now over the tools, I just have everything kind of just laid out as I may need it. This tool broke, funny story, not really funny, but it definitely twisted and broke, so I don't have that anymore. Oh well. I just kind of have everything sitting aside. If you just find anything else you want to coat, I just leave all the WD-40 to the side. Also with the engine, I just make sure I have every port covered. I have a cover over this, cover over that. And then it's always a good idea to, this engine's not the cleanest, so I kind of couldn't get it clean. This pipe is atrocious, but it's what we got for right now until I get another one. Definitely make sure these bearings are good. It's very important. These seem to be perfectly fine. Make sure there's no play in this as well. And you can always take this apart and check your clutch shoes. It's never a bad idea. Make sure all that's fine before you go to the event. That's not really the easiest thing to change on race day, but I mean, it's not the worst or the most impossible. It can definitely be done. So just check over all of that. Another good thing to note before you put the car back together is to inspect all your fuel line. I typically try to replace this every third time I clean the car, just because you never know. It's just something, it's cheap maintenance. Like, it's just easy peace of mind. So it's just something I do because these sit right next to this pipe and they get very hot. So I just like to ensure that they're going to be okay and don't have any leaks or cracks in them. Always also inspect the ends. You want to make sure there's no like cracks or rips at the ends that could cause you problems with its seating or just anything. Just do a quick glance over of that. Just make sure there's none of that. Then also another thing to check on the fuel tank is this O-ring. Sorry, a one-man camera. Make sure there's plenty of like seal and it feels tight, so you make sure it's not a problem as well. As far as all of this goes, I'm sorry this is charged right now, it's kind of hard to move, but you just want to inspect and check all of these, make sure everything looks tight here. Check these little set screws in that. You Also, it's a good idea to just take this box apart, not really apart, just take the cap off and just check all your wiring in here. Make sure nothing's getting torn and just clean it out. It does get dusty sometimes. Just make sure all that's clean and good to go so you won't have any problems with your electronics. Alright guys, and kind of another last thing to note, I missed it in the previous little clip I just did, but also check the drive shafts. See if I can put it in front of the camera. This little end piece right here, they can get flat spotted and it just cause like some slop in the drivetrain. It's just something you really don't want to have to go through. So if you can just check on these periodically and just make sure they're not flat spotted. I had one that was, so I'm going to be replacing that. And then also check these out drives in the they go into the diff and everything. Those also can get flat spotted from the drive shaft. Okay, here's a little close up what I was talking about. These little out shafts right here, whatever you want to call it. These can get flat spots in them right here on the sides where the drive shaft just beats back and forth from this just making power and going through it and all that stuff. Just make sure you check these and make sure there's no slop in there. Just wear your drivetrain out and just cause excessive stuff that you don't need. Okay, now that I think I've covered almost everything about before you are ready to put the car back together, another thing I did want to note, I had a previous person comment in the last video I made about do I put Loctite on screws when I put them back in. Yes, I do. There's only really a few spots that I put Loctite is if there's a screw going into metal. Obviously, I do always make sure I put Loctite on the servo saver in these two bolt holes right here. I use just a regular Permatex medium strength blue Loctite. It's easy to get back off. It ensures just won't come loose and make sure all that's fine. Another thing to note, because you're going to be washing this, there'll be some water and just cleaning chemicals in there. I always like to take, I'm using Team Associated black grease. I'm sure any grease will be fine as long as it's high temperature. What I like to do is get the end of like a little flathead screwdriver like this. It's just a little snap-on screwdriver. I like to take that and dip it in here. And I like to take and just put a little piece of grease on the inside of these just to make sure that you have some lubrication between those right there before they rub back together. Other than that, guys, it's really it with the Nitro car. It's kind of just all self-explanatory. Just check over the car. Just make sure you're going over the car and looking over every possible thing you can. Anything you do now while you have some time is way better than trying to do it at the track and finding out you missed something. So if you just have a concern, just double check and just make sure. Another short little clip I wanted to throw in this video. I apologize I don't have a video of cleaning this yet. I'll try to make another one if there's some interest in it. Just leave a comment below if you want to see me clean the electric car. It's basically the same, but there's some different steps you have to take before you start cleaning this because it's majorly electronics and they're not that easy to take off. But I can go through the steps on that if you guys like. Just let me know in a comment below. But here we go with this. Some things I thought I'd note if you're putting the electric car back together or just looking over it for maintenance wise, what you're going to want to do is ensure that all of your connections are good. These are not good, as you can see, but what you're really checking for here is just looseness. You want to make sure that you have a good connection on all of these. As you can see, these don't move, and you just want to check over each and every wire and just make sure there's no problems. It's just something good, just again, just kind of simple thing you can do just to check over. You're going to make sure all your connections into your receiver are good. Nothing is loose or going to come apart. Make sure if you have anything zip tied, like I'm keeping this away from that drive shaft right there. You'll make sure all of that's solid. And just check over all of your electrical connections and wires. I'm going to be doing this and actually switching over to a different connector and kind of redoing this. We're going to be switching to the, what is this, X160 connector. So I'm going to be switching to, supposed to be more like handle frequency better than these Deans. So we're going to be switching to these connectors from now on. I'll probably get into that tonight. I also have a little bind plug I have to solder from the other battery. But just make sure you go over your connections really good. Make sure you have a clean solder to them. Make sure just everything is connected the way it's supposed to be properly, and ensure you won't have any problems on a race day. Alright guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it took so long. Again, I sincerely apologize. It's just been kind of crazy with everything going on. Try to get some more videos out soon though. I promise I'm going to try to do that. But it's just everything I do before I put the car back together, just ensure that I have peace of mind and I'm just 110% ensure that the car is going to be the best it can possibly be before I throw it on the track. So I have no problems. Things do happen. You're still going to break stuff's still going to happen, but this just helps give you that peace of mind. So hopefully nothing does happen. hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any other questions or anything else I didn't cover that you want me to cover, just leave a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer it as I can and get with it. And guys, I hope you all have a great weekend if you're racing anywhere, and maybe I'll see some of you at SOS. Thank you guys for watching.